of this horrendous act is horrible. Talking about this wasn't no joke. It ain't no joke what they got planned for y'all. Y'all got to organize, mobilize, coalition.
That's right.
This sister reached across and she started spitting. It so confused the police until the doctors got through. And they stopped our bleeding. Wasn't no force could have got through there. Hundreds of them. They got us surrounded in the Cook County Hospital. Wouldn't let nobody through because they was looking for the rest of the Panthers to come. So they like this. K-Love. Words.
Power.
Words. What mama just say. Put this out there. What chairman just say. You gotta get the message out there. And the other thing, the brother said something that I thought was the most profound of all. Now I'm from the hood. Could tell you. I could barely read or write. We sat up in there and went over them books. And I passed my exams and all that. I lost my point. It's, yeah.
I heard that.
But I'm hurting.
Yes.
But I want to say to y'all, this is my point. We ain't never been losing.
Right.
Y'all understand?
That's
Yes.
right. We the winners.
If we had been losing, how did we get to you? Huh?
People.
If we had been losing, how did we get to you? Huh? We ain't never been losing. 3 million Africans emancipated 150 years ago. They say we're killing each other off, but we're 45 million strong now. And it's y'all turn.
Yes, it is. Talk
We
about
ain't never been losing. All power to the people.
All power to the people.
I'm sorry, that was a little soft.
Yeah.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Right on, right on. All power to the people, right on. I see some, I know we gonna, we ain't gonna put no time down.
Peace, family. This is Minister Jew, a.k.a. the Urban Mystic. Here to cover a few things that I noticed from observation from the 46th Annual International Revolutionary Day for Fred Hampton here in Chicago. I was out there at the rally, very powerful rally, man. Salute to all the people that put that together for these over the last 46 plus years. Very powerful display of unity, which is always a good thing to see. See people coming together for a common cause and having some direction and some sort of aim or some sort of message to get out to the people. The video that I posted here was a brother named Blair Anderson who was actually inside of the house that night, that December 4th night, when the police came in there and assassinated Fred Hampton and shot up multiple people inside of that building. And so Blair was there talking about some of the experiences that he had on that night, specifically when he went to the Cook County Hospital. And when you hear him speak about this other woman who was there, who was spitting, she was literally spitting and chanting and saying these words over these Panther members who had been injured and shot at the location and rushed to the Cook County Hospital. You hear his words where he said, this threw the police off so bad that they literally turned around and walked out, and she was literally acting as a shield to these men who were there until the paramedics actually had an opportunity to arrive and actually stop their bleeding and essentially save their lives. So what I want to talk about is the spiritual component that's missing in this fight. We got a lot of bright individuals out here who have a lot of intellect and know-how and putting things together and showing people how to go about the fight from a strategic, logical way or perspective, which is great because we need it. But what the priesthood is here to do is to show how the missing component is from the spiritual side or the unseen side or the quantum side, whatever you feel more comfortable calling it, that has to be at play if there's going to be any significant real traction and movement. And I understand why people may be skeptics when people start talking about spirit or spirituality. That's because most people who do talk spirit or spirituality, they don't show and prove, or very seldom show and prove. But that's not what the priesthood does. We show and prove in the public, have went on public record to say what we're going to do, how it's going to transpire, when it's going to transpire, and the events transpire exactly on time with the components involved inside of the meditation or the activations that we put forth. And so what we're saying is that in order for this movement to move anywhere, you have to have your high priest and high priestesses who can show and prove first, and then move in to help the operation. It's not going to work any other way, because the invisible, your thoughts, is what actually moves the physical. Right? So I want to get into a little bit of what Brother Blair spoke about when he spoke about this woman spitting. Now you have to really, really look at that and analyze that. She started murmuring words and spitting out of her mouth to act as a form of protection around people who've got shotguns and handguns and all kind of stuff, right? To use it as a shield or a weapon over her people in that moment to protect them. So when we look at what is spitting, right? So we have to take it to some of the ancient languages to be able to see what really was transpiring, to get an understanding of what was the real program running behind what the physical situation called for. So when we look at to spit, it's a word rakak in Hebrew, right? And it composes itself of these two letters in the Hebrew language, which is resh and kaf, meaning the head and the back of the head, right? So right off the top, we understand that this is something cerebral. This is something that's going on in the mental faculties of man. In that particular case, in the mental faculties of this woman, where she had this idea to spontaneously act and start spitting. We see the connection to the mind, to the brain, to all this mental, to this mentalism aspect, right? And when we translate that over and we start to apply it to some of the ancient systems that give us an understanding of how to look at the physical world, but see the spiritual component that is running the background program to understand what you're really looking at, we go to the tree of life and we see that on these 22 paths, Resh is the sun. Kaf is the moon when we're looking at it from a tarot aspect, right? So right off the bat, we're seeing something going on in the mind, something going on in the brain, right? Something going on in this woman's consciousness. And we're seeing the two luminaries that light up the morning sky and the night sky, which acts as our guiding post, right? Especially when we get into the art and the craft of astrology, astronomy, etc., right? We make solar calendars. We make lunar calendars. But when we go past that aspect, we start to see that the sun and the moon actually represent the conscious and the subconscious mind, right? and how to pull forth from the unconscious or the subconscious, which is really the realm of subatomic particles, quantum, where all things can exist simultaneously and have all these different attributes going on at the same time. How do you pull these images, right, from the subconscious mind to bring it forth into a full splendor of light, i.e. the sun, in order to have an effect on this reality? So I spoke with Brother Blair, right? And he asked me out there, because I took a picture with him yesterday, and he asked me, he said, well, brother, what do you do? I said, well, I observe planetary bodies and use the power of imagery to create phenomenon. So he looked at me and he said, man, they are in trouble now. You the generation that we've been waiting on. And see, it's some things that I can't say here or show here, right? Because everything's not for the camera. But we put work in. The priesthood puts work in. And it's been many people who have seen it in private venues and know exactly what I'm talking about. So when you hear the Prime Minister and Noble Ampu talking about being very selective with your imagery and learning how to create and cause phenomenon in this world, this is the truth. So you'll see it in this situation that happened with this brother Blair Anderson, right? And the other men and women who were involved in this horrific event. That moment when this sister was spitting is what stuck in this man's mind for over 40 years. He's consistently bringing that back through recall because the spirit, right, is communicating through that circumstance and experience and was waiting on somebody like me to hear it in order to break it down so that you can see exactly what's going on. So what is Minister Jew saying? I'm saying that the power of our minds and understanding the dynamics of light, i.e. the moon and the sun, if we utilize it strictly on the level of consciousness, we have the ability to make matter move and shift in this reality. Similar to how she spit, right? Sun, moon, resh, cough, right? And created a vortex around these men for protection. Now, what happens when we consciously do this before the said enemy attacks or strikes? Because she had to be placed in a position where she had to go into the deeper recesses of her mind to come up with something organically in that moment after the attack had already happened. But what happens when you have scientists who understand these phenomena and we utilize these principles and do not have to always be reactionary, but can be proactive and productive and implement these same forces prior to these type of circumstances? So this is just a real brief food for thought. And I wanted to drop this. I just had it on my spirit this morning to drop it. And there's going to be some more coming behind this. But this should let this reverberate in your consciousness and start asking yourselves different questions. Start asking yourself, what else are we not implementing collectively? And really see that in your mind's eye. And focus on that. And get at us, man. We over at Hip Hop Astrology TV, right? We over at Hip Hop Astrology on Twitter, right? Get at us, man. You know where we at. You know where to find us, man. Peace.